Hey, everybody.
How you doing?
How's everybody doing today? How was the weekend?
It was good. Pretty good. How was yours?
It was good, good. It was good. I went on a sailing trip with my wife. So it was nice not to have school Thursday or Friday. I like that. Let's have more of that, shall we?
I like it.
Um, how did you guys like the exam?
Wasn't too bad.
Wasn't too bad. Anybody else? I
Went pretty well.
I only have looked at your multiple choice. And everybody did very well on the multiple choice. You guys must be really smart because normally I don't get as good a grades on that multiple choice portion of the exam. So my conclusion is that you guys are really smart, which is great. Of course, I haven't looked at the short answer part at all. Hopefully I'll get to it today. So, how about having everybody, did you all get like different questions at different times?
Say it again.
Did you get different questions from each other?
I honestly don't know.
It was hard to do that, make up all these different questions. Anyway, I'm glad that we did that and you did as well as you did. So today we will start with all right, finally. How about that, huh? So let's have a look here. We're going to start chapter 8 today. Yeah, we have last week, the exam. Today, chapter 8. I again put up my notes for your benefit for chapter 8. Then we have the homework for chapter 8. And we have a case study. This is chapter 8, the case study I want you to do. Financial development and economic growth. So read this in the textbook. It includes this. It includes this box, FYI, from the textbook, and this. Okay? So we want you to do a case, we want you to read that stuff and write a 2 to 3 pages summary of that material, right? And what you take from it. And if you have a stance about it, and do that for next Monday, October 5th. All right. Sound like a plan?
Is that double space, 2 to 3 pages?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. Is there any reason that we're skipping chapter 7? Or should we, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't think it was as important as some of the other chapters. Rational expectations and the efficient market hypothesis. It's fairly esoteric. I felt that we obviously are not going to cover the entire textbook. So I thought in the interest of time, let's move on to things that are more, which I think are more fruitful for you to learn about.
Okay, thank you.
But by all means, feel free to read it and enjoy. Yeah, good question. Anybody else? All right, let's have a look at chapter 8, shall we? An economic analysis of financial structure. So we have said that the whole basis for the financial industry is to move money from people who have it to people who need it. Right? A healthy, vibrant economy requires a financial system that moves money from people who save to people who have productive investment opportunities. So this chapter is going to answer the question, how does money get moved from people who want to save to people who want to borrow? People who want to borrow are people who have productive investment opportunities. So in this chapter, we're going to identify 8 facts about our global financial system. We want to summarize how transaction costs affect financial intermediaries. So financial intermediaries are those firms that help to move money from savers to borrowers. And then, this stuff is very, very cool. We're going to describe why asymmetric information leads to adverse selection and moral hazard. So those are some of my favorite things, moral hazard in particular. So then we're going to recognize adverse selection and then look at ways that we can reduce it. Yeah? But these 8 basic facts basically we have to be able to explain them if we're going to understand how this financial system works. We want to recognize this principal agent problem arising from moral hazard inequities and summarize the methods for trying to reduce it. And then we also want to look at moral hazard in debt contracts. So we're going to look at the how the financial structure is designed to promote efficiency. So if you look at your, well, in the next slide, I guess, is the bar chart in figure 1 in your textbook, shows how American businesses finance their activities using external funds in the period from 1970 to 2000 and compares US data to those of Germany, Japan, and Canada. So you all must be saying 1970 to 2000, that's even before you guys were born, am I right? Some of you. Why is it important? Because essentially the same principle holds true today. Things haven't changed. Yeah? The same conclusions we could get from today. And here's the picture. Let me ask you another question. Germany, Japan, and Canada, and the US. Doesn't it seem like somebody's missing?
Wait, Great Britain, maybe?
Great Britain? Who said that, Joe Blakely?
No, me.
Oh, Elias, yeah. Well, Great Britain is not necessarily a world powerhouse in terms of economic growth and development, you know?
Did you say China?
What?
Did you say China?
No, I said Great Britain. Well, somebody said Great Britain, am I right?
I did.
Jake said Great Britain, yeah, and I said, oh, that must be Joe Blakely, right? But because I didn't know who said it, but it's not Great Britain that I'm thinking of. Although Great Britain is not in the list, so yeah. But I'm thinking China. Somebody said, did I say China? I was thinking China. I must have thought it in my outside voice, And at the end of the chapter, there's an application that talks about economic growth and what does China need to do. So I don't think it's any mistake that they're not in the list, right? There's some real issues in China in terms of government, the government control and the type of government that they have. That's just an aside, that I thought was interesting. So let's go here. Let's go here. Bar chart in figure 1. Source of external funds for non-financial businesses. United States with Germany, Japan, and Canada. So look at this. Bank loans, non-bank loans, bonds, and stock. What's so striking about that picture? Anybody?
How little the United States finances stuff from bank loans.
Yeah, that's that's a characteristic. Thanks, Jake. What else? Dejar, did you get a haircut?
I cut it like a week ago, a
Oh,
couple
all
days
right.
ago.
Looking
Yeah, I
good.
cut my own hair. Thank
You
you.
do. My wife won't let me cut my hair. So what else about this picture is striking? This stock is tiny. Mostly, I've got to talk to you. I can't talk to the slide. We would have thought, probably we would have thought that most of the financing that corporations and businesses do is done through issuing shares of stock, right? We would have thought that's got to be the most important way that businesses raise money. But in fact, it is not. In fact, by far, the biggest way that companies raise money is to borrow it. They just go to the bank or to go to financial intermediaries and borrow the money. You know, they get loans far more than issue equities. Okay. So let's go back and look at our figure 1 here. Bank loans, this part, these are loans from depository institutions. So real commercial banks, right? You go to a commercial bank and borrow the money. Non-bank loans, these are loans from other financial intermediaries. And we said financial intermediaries, this is a company whose purpose is to move money from savers to borrowers. And a financial intermediary might be like an insurance company or a credit union. Yeah, it's loaning money to the neighborhood, the corner store that sells, you know, cigarettes and booze and groceries and stuff like that, right? And then we have bonds. This is simply debt, right? So when they issue bonds, they're basically companies are borrowing money. And then stock, as I said, this is the least prevalent way of raising money. We're talking about new issues of equities, okay? And bonds would include commercial paper. Yeah, remember commercial paper? Short-term issuances of money from corporations, right? All right. So we're going to talk about those 8 basic facts, right? Let's go back. Identify 8 basic facts about the global financial system. 1, stocks are not the most important source of external financing. The stock market accounts for only a small fraction of external financing, whether in the US or other countries. Yeah, it's a small thing. Number 2, issuing marketable debt and equity securities is not the primary way in which businesses finance their operation. Although bonds are far more important than stock, 32% over 11%, still, the combination is less than half. Can we go back to our picture? Sorry, here we go. So we have in the United States, 32% is issuing debt and 11% is issuing stock. That's still only 43%, less than half of their financing requirements for US corporations. Indirect finance is many, many times more important than direct finance. So this is primarily new issues of corporate bonds and commercial paper are going to go to financial intermediaries, insurance companies, pension funds, mutual funds, those kinds of companies, right? How about financial intermediaries, particularly banks? This is fact 4. Most important source of external money used to finance your new cupcake business. 50%, 56% of all financing comes from bank and non-bank loans. So we have banks and non-banks as in a credit union. Fact number 5. The financial system is the most heavily regulated sectors of the economy. That's like, oh my God, really? It must be heavily regulated to promote and ensure the stability of our financial system. The financial system has to be secure. Otherwise, we're not going to go there with our money, right? So if we don't have confidence in the stock market or in banks, yeah, we don't have confidence that to bring our money to the bank, there's going to be real trouble. Yeah, that's why the financial industry is so heavily regulated. Only large, well-established corporations have easy access to securities to market their activities. Hang on, the wind just blew all these papers all over the place. Okay. Most individuals and smaller companies are not likely to raise any money by using marketable securities. Yeah, your businesses, you're mostly mom and pop and small businesses or small corporations. They don't have access to issue securities to finance their activities, right? It's a very expensive process. Collateral, item number 7, basic fact number 7. Collateral is a prevalent feature of debt for both households and businesses. Is that for real? Collateralized debt or secured debt, contrasted with unsecured debt like credit card debt, is a predominant form of household debt. Is that for real? Give me an example. Shane.
Yes, Professor.
Give me an example.
Of what?
Of collateralized household debt.
Collateralized household debt. Maybe a mortgage.
Very good. Thank you very much. How about an unsecured household debt? David Steria.
Would that be like maybe like a car loan in one person's name?
Well, what does anybody think about that idea? It's a very good idea, David. It's certainly household debt. But if you don't pay that car loan, what are they going to do?
Take it.
They're going to come and take your car, right? In front of all the neighbors. They're going to come and pull up with a flatbed and tow it away, and you're going to be embarrassed, man. And then you're not going to be able to get to work. So we call the car collateral. So we would call a car loan security, the car security for the loan, right? What would be unsecured?
Credit card debt?
Thank you, Matt. Credit card debt, right? You could go buy all kinds of crap with your credit card and not pay the bill, and what happens? You stop getting those notices in the mail. Do you want a new credit card? Do you want a new credit card? And then when you graduate from Bonos and you go to rent an apartment in New York City, they're going to say, well, what's your credit rating? And because you didn't pay your credit card debt, your credit rating is going to be like 600, and you're going to wind up living in New Jersey. Just trying to lighten the mood here, Very quiet where I'm sitting. All right, let's go back to this. Go back to school. Okay, so collateral, household and businesses. Debt contracts are extremely complicated legal documents that place substantial restrictive covenants on borrowers. These are usually long legal documents with lots of really boring language. Restrictive covenants must insert, for example, in your household, when you go get a mortgage, they're going to say you've got to have homeowners insurance. Yeah? The bank is going to say you've got to have homeowners insurance. How come? They want to know if you burn down the house or something like that, that they're going to get their money back. Yeah? That would be an example of a restrictive covenant. Must have homeowners insurance. All right. Transaction costs. This is pretty important. Financial intermediaries have evolved to reduce transaction costs in a couple of different ways: economies of scale and expertise. So it is very expensive to buy a small amount of stock. Economies of scale. The implication is that a financial intermediary will bundle the funds of many investors together. The transaction cost of doing a large transaction is not much different than doing a small transaction. So if you were doing you wanted to buy for your own account 500 shares of some kind of company, that would cost you quite a lot of money in commissions and brokerage fees. But if you put your money into a mutual fund, you could perhaps get the same stocks at much better cost. Expertise. So some financial intermediaries are able to offer convenient services because they have expertise in something. You'll see this my favorite example is if you wanted to trade, right? If you wanted to trade from home, stocks like a day trader, or set up a company to do that kind of thing, or there are banks that do that, they have expertise in that. So you don't want to go to Community Bank in Olean and say, hey, I'm going to set up a day trading operation with three of my best buddies in the whole world that I met at Bonaventure this year, because Community Bank isn't going to have any idea what you're talking about. But if you go to Wall Street, banks there are going to say, okay, what are you going to trade? What are you going to do? Blah, 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 blah. They have the expertise for that sort of thing. some certain companies may specialize, certain financial intermediaries may specialize in car loans, so they know, like, oh, this car should be worth this much, or this car should be worth this much, or yacht loans, right? You're going to go to a yacht broker, not a community bank. If you walked into a community bank and said, hey, I want to buy this yacht, they're going to be like, well, we don't do that. We're not going to give you the money for that, You see what I'm saying? So expertise, that's what we're talking about. Right here, transaction costs. All right. The asymmetric information. Let's look at this. Adverse selection occurs before a transaction. So adverse selection and moral hazard. Moral hazard arises after the transaction. Asymmetric information is about the difference in information, right? The company knows more than the shareholders. This is asymmetric information I'm talking about. The company, right, they're going to issue shares maybe. They know more about their company than you do buying shares of the stock. Yeah? They know that they're on the up and up, or that they're a little bit shady, or that they have a big problem with their production, or they're lying about their diesel emissions or something like that, right? So the difference in information in stock, and then there's difference in information in the debt market, in lending, right? So you walk into a bank and you want to get a loan, you know more about your ability to pay that loan back than the bank does, right? So this is what we mean when we say asymmetric information, yeah? And then the two things that we're going to talk about is adverse selection and moral hazard. And then agency theory analyzes how this asymmetric information affects economic behavior. So moral hazard, the borrower engages in activity that is undesirable for the lender's point of view. Adverse selection, potential bad credit risks are the ones who most actively seek out loan. That makes sense, right? We're going to talk more about this. A lot more about this. Lemon's problems, how adverse selection influences financial structure. If the quality cannot be assessed, the buyer is willing to pay at most, a price that reflects average. So, the Lemons problem. Let's use the used car market as an example, okay? Lemons in the used car market. Some cars, as you know, are junk, right? And some cars are good running cars, right? So you can't assess whether a car is a good car or a bad car just by going to the seller and saying, hey, I want to see that car that you put on Craigslist. Yeah, you don't know if that car is a lemon or if it's a good running car, right? The dude is going to say, oh, it's a great car. Because you cannot assess the real value of the car, you are at most only going to be willing to pay average price. Yeah? So the stock market is the same scenario. The investor doesn't know if a company is a really good company, so they don't want to pay any more than average, right? This is the Lemons problem. This is kind of cool. I mean, in as much as anything in this class is cool. If quality cannot be assessed, right, as you buy that used car, the buyer is willing to pay at most a price that reflects average quality. Sellers of a good quality item will not want to sell the price for average quality. you want to sell a car and you know that that car has always been good to you and it always started and it always ran, you don't want to take a hit on selling it, right? The buyer will not decide to buy it all because all that's left in the market is poor quality. So this problem, the lemons problem, explains facts 2 and partially fact 1. Let's go back. 2, issuing marketable debt is not the primary way. So we know this, yeah? And partially, number 1, stocks are not the most important source of external financing for business. So in the stock market, we don't necessarily know if it's a good company or a bad company. So we left off here. So tools to solve adverse selection. Adverse selection. So I want to elaborate a little bit on this before we talk about how do we solve it. You know, adverse selection, what does that mean? The people who go to a bank for a loan usually are people, they're not necessarily really good credit risks, you know? The best credit risk is somebody that saves to buy a new refrigerator, right? The worst credit risk is somebody that borrows to do everything. They have, $30,000 in credit card debt, and they instead of paying that off, they're making minimum payments every month, and they want a new lawnmower, and immediately they go to Home Depot and they put it on their Home Depot credit card. So very often, adverse selection means that the people who are the worst at managing their money are the people who are going to want to borrow more money. Yeah? That's what we're talking about. So how do we solve that problem? Private production and sale of information. Information eliminates this lemons problem. Yeah? If you know it's a good car, you're going to be willing to pay the extra money for it, right? But if many people free ride on the information, it makes paying for the information a bad idea. And then we're back to having the same problem. So in other words, if we were talking about companies like stocks, somebody does some research on the company, yeah, that makes you more able to discern that, oh, this is a good company, and I'm willing to pay a little bit more than average price because I've learned that it's a good company. But because you purchased the information from somebody who did the analysis. But if everybody watched you, for example, if you were a big stockbroking Bank of America, for example, then that would do away with the benefit of having had the information, you know? So government regulation to increase information. This doesn't always work. The information can be manipulated by the companies so that they satisfy the government regulation, but they're really not doing the right thing. They're just cooking the books so that it looks like they're good. Yeah, even though the government says, hey, you've got to have a certain amount in reserve, or you got to do this or that or whatever, okay? So it explains fact 5. Let's go back. Financial system is heavily regulated, and that's true. We said that's true. And this government regulation to increase the information, yeah, so we require that companies release their quarterly statements or whatever, right? Financial intermediation. This is like the used car dealer. right? So financial intermediation. An example would be a used car dealer. If you know a dealer in Olean and everybody that you know that has bought a car from that dealer has had good luck or thinks the cars that they bought were really good, then you're going to be more willing to trust that dealer, right? This is what financial intermediation does. If a company is putting stocks in their portfolio, then you're more likely to trust that company. Yeah. So the other thing might be something like the company, for the car dealer example, the Schultz will offer a guarantee on the car. They say, oh man, we know that we're selling good cars. And because of that, we're willing to guarantee it. Yeah. So this eliminates some of this adverse selection problem. And then collateral and net worth. So let's look at 3, 4, and 6, financial intermediation. 3, indirect finance, many more times important. 4, financial intermediaries are most important source of external financing. And 6, you've got to be a big company to be able to issue securities. And then collateral and net worth. So collateral is, yeah, I'm going to borrow money to buy this car. And if I don't pay you back, take the car, right? I'm going to take this mortgage out and buy the house. If I don't pay you back, take the house. Explains fact 7. Collateral, prevalent feature of debt, both households and business. Yep, so we know that, right? Enron company declared bankruptcy in December of 2001. Up to that point, this was the largest bankruptcy in the United States history. Government regulation can lessen this asymmetric information, but cannot eliminate them. So Enron really increased concerns in the market about quality of accounting information, but also hardship. Many of the firms, employers at Enron, they lost their whole life. Their whole life savings were wrapped up in the pension fund, So it doesn't necessarily, even though we have government regulation, it doesn't necessarily solve the problem. Okay, moral hazard. So the principal agent problem. Principal has less information. You, the owner of a company, has less information on what's going on within that company than the manager, the agent of that company. This is our famous principal agent problem. Yeah? We're talking now about moral hazard. So, separation of ownership and control of the firm. Managers pursue personal benefits and power rather than the profitability of the firm. This is a principal agent problem, right? So, principal agent, you own the company, but you're not running it. So you don't necessarily know what the dude running the company is doing. Yeah. And as it said, the dude running the company may be ego driven, right? Say they may want to be the biggest download company in music downloads out there, and they're willing to slash the price or whatever just to be the best. Yeah. And that's ego. That's not to increase shareholder wealth, is it? And they may say, you know what? We really need a private jet, this company, to go so I can go visit my subsidiaries. But really, all the dude wants is a private jet so he can go back and forth to the Caribbean, right? So, but you don't know. He's telling you as the shareholder that he needs a private jet so that he can visit his subsidiaries, right? So let's look at my one last look at this slide here. In equity contracts, the owners or stockholders are not the same as the managers. Managers may act in their own interest rather than the interests of the company, and managers may take undue risk. So we said that moral hazard happens after the fact, right? Didn't that come up here? After the transaction has developed. And then we talked about adverse selection before the transaction occurs. So I'm going to wrap it up right now. I'm going to say, so adverse selection is before the transaction. We say, the dude walks in, he wants a loan from the bank. And right away that he's not very good at managing his money, perhaps, right? And then moral hazard is the dude got the money, and let's say he's a student at Bonaventure, and he got a student loan, right? And he went to the bank and he said, yeah, I need to buy these textbooks for Gallagher's class, and I need to pay my tuition and everything else, and I'm not working. And so the bank gives him the loan, and in fact, the dude suddenly gets, $10,000, and he thinks it's a good idea to double his money by investing in, I don't know what, fish tanks, so he can grow magic mushrooms and sell them to all the other students at Bonaventure, rather than buy Gallagher's textbooks, yeah? Whatever it is. You see what I'm saying is moral hazard is you do something dumb with the money after you get the money, not what you said you were going to do. And adverse selection is, well, you're a bad credit risk because you need the money to begin with, So why don't we stop here today and come back and pick this up on Wednesday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.